TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Three Men in the Box, the NCAA Super Regional Baseball Show, with, of course, the two stars of this show, Mr. Matt Grissom and Mr. Quentin Mills, otherwise known a.k.a. Q Millie, 3 L's, 2 Y's, driving home again. This is twice this year, so I'm that guy. I apologize. Schedules happen, life happens, but we're going to try to get this show done. Two teams are playing, Yukon and Florida, and the shocker, and we'll get into it, of course, is Arkansas not getting out, and I know Matt's a little PO'd about that, and we'll get to that one. So first and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor, of course, in partnership, WagerWire. Had Travis Geiger on earlier this morning. Go do yourself a favor. Head on over to Google Play or App Store, wherever you download the apps, right there, top right corner. It's free. WagerWire, one word. Download it. Get yourself acclimated to the app. Scroll to the bottom and download all the sports books that are alive in your state, and take advantage of the promos, the match plays, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to join this team, shame on you if you don't. Send an email to affiliate@wagerwire.com. Travis, Zach, myself, Amber, Holly, the rest of this team, Jay Berry, will take good care of you. So without further ado, let's bring in the stars of the show, Mr. Quentin Mills and Matt Grissom. What up, boys?
Good afternoon.
Mr. Dawson, always a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine. I'm going to try to see if I can figure this out. Give me 1 second here. And then I go over to here. And now I got to do this. There we go. What's up, boys?
I lost my S again.
Oh,
Yukon plus 1.5. Lost my S.
Everybody doubted Millsy when he took the Seminoles.
Did you bet money line or did you bet the run line?
Parlay.
Nice.
Everybody counts out Millsy. Don't. It's bad.
Don't ever count out Millsy. No.
What are you doing in the Tennessee game? I need a winner.
I think I'm going to take Tennessee about 12.5.
I'm just going to lay the minus 600. Give it out. Lock of the day.
Grissom's lock of the day. He has spoken. It might even be College Baseball Insider's lock of the year.
Run for the hills.
Endeavorman looks good on paper, but that 114th ranked strength of schedule for Evansville, I think they get exposed. America's favorite underdog, the Purple Aces, go down in 2 in Knoxville.
Isn't this his upset special?
Yep.
That's what we're told. I'll leave it at that.
Well, let's go back. We were here last Friday. You guys were bumping and jumping. Everyone flocking to the College Baseball Insiders. Your website blowing up like a wood tick here. Matchups, pitching matchups. It was a breath of fresh air, and it still is. Obviously, a lot of high expectations. A lot of shockers, as in Yukon, as in Florida. They found a way to get to this weekend. Matt, I got to start with you. What the bleep happened to Arkansas?
Look, I was told all season long, don't worry about it. Hogs can't lose at Baum Walker. As long as we get there and have the regional and supers, we were going to be fine. But guess what? The team struggled to hit all season long. The pitching fell apart at the worst possible time. So it should come as no shock that one bad pitch from Hagen Smith ended our season. We lost to Kansas State off of Kalen Culpepper's 3-run home run. We could not recover. We couldn't beat SEMO. We wouldn't have beat Kansas State in 2 games either. We didn't have the pitching depth. They just absolutely fell apart. Hate it for the guys, but this is on the coaching staff. If Dave Van Horn does not remove Nate Thompson or change his philosophy in some sort of sense, it's going to be much of the same. We're not getting the big guys in the transfer portal. We got Vahiva Aloy's little brother who's batting like a 776 OPS. That's not going to cut it when you go from BYU to the SEC. I have little to be excited about.
Well, you talked about it, Friday Night Lights, and you guys, I don't want to say got cute. You won without Hagen. You had to be happy going into Saturday, up 1-0 in the winner's side, and Hagen pitching. Just an off day. What happened to Hagen?
You know, he pitched well for the first few innings, and then he left that slider up, and Culpepper took it yard. I mean, you can really, and that's the thing about baseball in and of itself, and then college baseball, you can take it a step further. Like one bad pitch that changes the trajectory of your season. And, you know, he was so good for so long, and he was dominant, and then he wasn't all of a sudden, and you hate it that he went out like that. Him and Kevin Kopps are arguably 2 of the best pitchers to don a Razorback uniform in the last decade. And they both, in their careers, on their last pitch being a home run. It's a shame.
Well, I want to further that point. When you have a pitching staff as good as Arkansas and an offense as lackluster as Arkansas, you know, there's certain pitches, like a pitcher can throw 100 pitches, but if he's got a lead, several runs, it's like kind of like highway miles, right? And then high leverage or city miles. Well, your engine, if you're running the highway every day, it will last a lot longer. When you're, you know, stop and go traffic, the high leverage, at some point, those catch up to you. You know, your mileage drops. And when you're asking Hagen Smith, as good as he is, or Mason Molina, or Brady Tigert, or any of those guys to be perfect all the time, they're gonna slip up. And I think people get so locked in that they're so good for so long that it's over exaggerated to see them struggle in a sense. Like Hagen Smith throws one bad pitch and he loses the game, and it's like, oh my God, like Hagen had a bad outing. No, he didn't. He pitched great. He had a lead and he threw one bad pitch. The offense can't get him a lead big enough to actually win the game. That's the concerning part. The guy has thrown 99 perfect pitches, but it's the same. You know, you give 100 bets, 1 losses to 99 wins, and you're still the worst handicapper out there, and they're coming after your family. And that's the same situation. You put so much pressure on these kids and so many high leverage pitches that they have to throw. Eventually, the armor is going to crack after you take, you know, so many hits, and that's what happened. And it's unfortunate that, you know, it happened to Hagen, of all people, one of the most dominant pitchers in college baseball, and that's just kind of how it felt. It's unfortunate.
Is Paul Skeens doing us dirty here? So in other words, everyone goes back to last year and the expectations. I mean, I think Hagen had 17 strikeouts in game 2. We're praising him, Mr. Friday Night himself. And Matt, you're right. The offense had been struggling, but you had enough pitching where we thought you'd find a way to muscle this through. And everyone just thinks that everyone's going to be like last year, Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not going to be a pitcher like Paul Skeens. And I tried to discredit all of the comparisons between Hagen and Paul Skeens. Hagen was dominant in his right self, but we're not going to see a repeat performance like Paul Skeens. I mean, that's a generational talent, and now we're seeing him have so much success in the MLB. And that really doesn't come as a shock to me because we saw it. I mean, he was a man among boys in college baseball. Now I feel like he's in the right competition level. mean, it would be like a 10-year-old playing 6U baseball. Like, yeah, he's going to dominate. Hagan was a great college pitcher. I hope that his game translates to the MLB, but it's all going to be situational where he ends up and the opportunities that he gets. I think he can have success in the majors, but to be able to replicate what Paul Skeens did throughout the college season onto the Pirates through their organization and finally becoming an MLB starter, I don't see Hagan's path being as open and closed, kind of like Paul Skeens was.
Yeah, but to that point, though, Paul Skeens had a hell of an offense to back him up. When you have Gavin Dugas, Trey Morgan, Dylan Cruz, Tommy White, like Arkansas didn't have that by any means, by a long shot. So, yes, are they both elite in their own ways? Absolutely. Is Skeens, could you say he's arguably better? Yeah, you absolutely can. But given the same situation, can we sit there and say that Arkansas would have won if Paul Skeens pitched the other night? I don't know. Paul Skeens gave up a home run last year. Well, so did Hagan. Like, again, it's a lot easier to win when you have that lineup I just mentioned versus a brutal, 260 batting average Arkansas. You give that to the LSU Tigers last year, they do not win the national championship. I'll tell you that right now. So, yes, they're comparable. I think the situation is uncomparable because, again, LSU was way better offensively and gave way more support to Paul.
Well, I'm going to take two teams that kind of muddled through the regular season. My Yukon Huskies, who shocked the world and get out of their region, beating Oklahoma. And I'm going to go to UQ, where a Florida team, every week you came on and it was the same old story. Somehow, some way got into the dance. Some people were not happy you were in the dance. And now not only do you get into the dance, you're at the Super Regionals. Take us through your journey and the Florida Gators last weekend.
Well, I think they have an advantage. The problem is I don't know how far that advantage goes in baseball without being tired. They've been playing playoff baseball since April, in the sense. Maybe I take that back. May, like mid-May, the Georgia series was a do or die for them. They had to win the series or they wouldn't get to this point. So while everybody else was kind of starting to tune into playoff atmosphere, playoff mentality late May, Florida was already in that. And then, they kind of had a goal, right? It's an easy goal. Let's just get to the tournament, and then we're on a level playing field with everybody else. And I think with them being able to have that mentality early on, it's given them an advantage. Again, once you get to regionals, everybody's 0-0 and on equal playing fields. You made the tournament. Again, whether people believe it or not, disagree with it, it is what it is. The fact remains they were there and they had an opportunity, and they had a lot to prove. And I think everybody kind of wrote them off throughout the year based off the midweek loss that they would take here and, pretty much every week. And then, they lost that big letdown series to Missouri. And I think people forgot the talent that they have. I mean, you look at that offense, a lot of those guys played on that national championship runner-up team last year. The pitching staff, a bunch of those guys were there, right? So they know how to kind of click into that mentality. And I think, they pitched like 9 or 10 freshmen this year, and not a lot of many teams can say that, especially in the SEC or that caliber of a schedule being number one in the nation. So when you look at a kid like Liam Peterson, who struggled early on, the kid's 18 years old playing tip-top college baseball at the SEC, its highest level. And then now he's not a freshman anymore. He is a true ace, and not many teams have that ability to make that maturity happen in one season. And you're starting to see it. I mean, the kid threw electric stuff in Stillwater, and then you got Pierce Capalla coming back. Like, he's starting to find rhythm. He was out for 2.5 years. So now you have a situation like that. You got a closer in Brandon Neely who can also pitch 4 or 5 innings. On paper, they were the number 2 overall team in the country coming into the season. And it wasn't for just lack of, people understood that they had talent. So let's not forget about that. And I think that's what happened. They're as good as anybody in this tournament on paper. Their problem was they couldn't get it together at the same time, pitching and hitting, and now they're starting to.
So now we get to before we get to the matchups and the Super Regionals here, I have to say my eyes were flocked on the series. I don't know. I assume you guys watched the LSU North Carolina battles, and it was as electric as you're going to get. And the Stars came up at the right point and homered for UNC. And just when you thought LSU was back in it, what'd you guys think of the LSU North Carolina battles?
I thought it was great. I thought it was impressive that North Carolina was able to win that game. I thought it was LSU. I felt like they had everything clicking at the right moment. I thought that the moment was going to be too big for North Carolina, and they somehow got it done.
Yeah, I question, and I hate to do this, but I question Jay Johnson's decision at the end of the ninth. Nate Ackenhausen was throwing really well. You're at a point in the tournament where everybody has thrown. It's not like one was fresh and wasn't. Yes, you bring in Gage Jump, your Friday night starter, but, he's still a young kid. And that's a lot of pressure. Nate Ackenhausen is also the same guy that, never made one start last year. And then he gets into the College World Series as what you would consider as like a bullpen starter in a game, and he throws 6 shutout innings. I thought that he was throwing really well. You just gotta, the guy that's been in that moment before, been on the big stage, do or die with him. Nothing against Nate Jump or Gage Jump, but Gage is like I said, a young pitcher. He was never in that high intensity moment like Nate was. Nate was shoving at the time. Just let him continue. And if you lost that way, you lost with your best reliever, in my opinion, on the mound, and you can live with that. But to the way they went out, especially with Nate not struggling on the mound, I think Jay kind of took the momentum out of LSU's hands there, and ultimately UNC wins the game.
12 o'clock start, Florida State, Yukon. As we talked backstage, I think we were more impressed with Yukon getting to the Supers this year. Matt, you can attest to this. I've talked now for 2 years about the length of the pitching staff for Yukon to get through the Sooners and Normandy, now to have to travel to Tallahassee to an offense. I want to say almost at some point second to none, give up a few crooked numbers. And us here back on Cape Cod or Stores, I think we're more worried about Coach Hurley being the next Lakers coach than the Yukon Huskies baseball team right now.
Yeah, the Huskies look like they're well on their way to going 2-and-barbecue. Jamie Arnold's going to go tomorrow for Florida State. I know that Yukon already threw Garrett Coe and their ace in Ian Cook, so that's going to leave Stephen Quigley probably to get the start tomorrow in what's probably going to be another bloodbath. But yeah, Yukon, they just completely shit the bed, for lack of better words, today. I didn't anticipate Ian Cook having such a struggling outing, but he did. He struggled. Only made it an inning and 2/3 before getting pulled after back-to-back home runs. That's the wrong time of the year to have one of your worst outings as starting pitcher, but it happens.
Before I go to Q, breaking down Virginia, Kansas State here, Tennessee, Evansville, North Carolina, West Virginia. What do you see in those two matchups?
I took Tennessee -4.5 at Hard Rock, and then I got them offshore -3.5. I think this is a very comparable situation to what we're seeing in Yukon. Yes, the stats may back Kenton Deverman and like Evansville a little bit, but now you're on a completely different stage, and you're playing a Tennessee team that's so well balanced. If they start Chris Stamos, he's going to give you 1 or 2, piggybacked with AJ Causey, who's been a very elite non-starter who really plays that starter role. I guess it was just a mentality thing for Vitello to put him in a different situation. And now he's thriving in that, getting to come in the second or third inning and just shove. So I think Tennessee could be on pace to just have another blowout win similar to what we've seen in game 1. Now, as far as North Carolina, West Virginia, I think that one could be a little tighter. Assuming it's Derek Clark versus Shea Sprague, this one could go down to the wire. I actually took West Virginia +2.5 in that one.
Now, all year here and on your shows, we're talking about the dominance of the SEC, and the ACC said, "Not so fast, guys. You guys want to forget about us." Very successful last weekend, and I've saved the best for last here today, Quentin. Virginia versus Kelly Stewart in Vegas's Kansas State Wildcats. Thoughts on Virginia and this matchup?
I actually think this is one of the easier, especially for Virginia. Virginia's offense is top 5 in the country, in my opinion. Everybody can hit 1 through 9. One of their worst hitters is hitting 290. I'll take that any day. They have power. They can play the short game. Brian O'Connor's teams are just so known and so, legendary for winning in June, especially, the year they won it in 15. Everybody counted them out and pitching wise, and they throw a gem and win a title against Vanderbilt. This year, similar. Pitching was their issue. The starters were okay. It was the bullpen that everybody, was down on, to include ourselves at one point in the season. But you just got to find it at the right time, and Brian O'Connor's teams do. And you look at what Jay Woolfolk was able to do last week against a tough Mississippi State team to clinch the regional final for him. And then, Evan Blanco, their Friday night guy, has been pitching unbelievable his last 3 starts. Joe Savino probably pitching Saturday through, an incredible game for them, game 1 in regionals. They're just finding things, at the right time, which obviously complements that offense. And when you look at Kansas State, they were extremely Jekyll and Hyde. I think the goal here and the game plan is just pitch around Kalen Culpepper and make the other guys on the team that have been extremely inconsistent offensively beat you. I don't think they're going to beat you. Owen Barema has been hit or miss at times this year. Same with Jackson Wentworth and Josh Wintroub, if it even goes 3. I think UVA gets this, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get the 2 and barbecue there and for Kansas State.
Tomorrow, I'll leave you, Quentin, with the ACC matchups. Kentucky against a Pac-12 Oregon State team. That's definitely going to be a fun one. And then, of course, Clemson and Florida.
I'll start with Kentucky, Oregon State. It's one of the most intriguing matchups. Matt and I have been, ad nauseum talking about Oregon State's struggles away from the Corvallis Dam, as we call it. But they actually shocked us. They went into the last weekend in the Pac-12 tournament, or the Pac-12 regular season, and yeah, they lost a walk-off in Game 3 to lose the Pac-12 regular season championship. But for all intents and purposes, they waxed Arizona in the first 2 games and said, not so fast. We can play ball with anybody, anywhere, and they're starting to get healthy at the right time. Their problem was, they would have good pitching and not so good hitting, and then vice versa. And what team shows up for Kentucky? Last year, they played Paul Skeens and ran into him, but they also lost game 2 to LSU there as well. It's a similar situation. A lot of pressures on Kentucky. Now you're at home. Everybody's kind of been, for all intents and purposes, sucking them off all year, and they're expected to win now. You're the number 2 seed in the country, at home against a tough Oregon State team. So do we get to Kentucky that started out game 1 in the regionals and looked kind of suspect? Or do we get the team that, we saw all year and just locks everybody down? I expect Trey Puzer and Aiden May to have a gem. And then ultimately, I lean Oregon State. I think offensively, they're just a better team, more consistent, more explosive. And then for Florida and the Clemson, I'm going to go on the record as a formality. For all intents and purposes, I'm going to pick Clemson as a strategic thing I've got going in my mind. But I think Florida hangs. I think, like we've talked about it, with Liam Peterson, Jack Caglione got roughed up a little bit in Stillwater, but he's still a dominant lefty. He can beat you from the plate or on the mound. And then, if it goes the 3rd game, Florida does have some freshmen that stepped up that they trust. They can throw pretty much anybody and be okay. And Clemson's pitching has had problems giving up big leads. So if I'm Florida and I get down a few runs early, don't worry about it, because there's still plenty of opportunities to get in the game. So I think Florida stands a little better chance than maybe people will give them credit for. And I think the series, and I just bet it today, and you can still get it in on Bet Rivers -121, the over 2.5 games in this series. I think it's pretty sure locked that it goes 3.
Mr. Grissom, we're going to keep you in the SEC. Texas A&M facing Oregon from the Pac-12, and the Georgia Bulldogs facing an upstart NC State team from the ACC.
Yeah, this one was kind of crazy because we only give 24.4% chance for NC State to advance through this, 75.6 for Georgia. The odds were pretty short, though. I think I took a minus 150 to win that super regional. And then I do think that it will go over 2.5. That was one along with Clemson's regional that I took the over 2.5 there as well. But Georgia, they're a team that has been good on offense all season long. Pitching has been their biggest question mark, but I feel like they've got just enough to be able to come out of this series. The opening game, Sam Heifel versus Leighton Finley, we make that a 66.5% chance for Georgia to win that. It's an implied probability of minus 198. I think the odds are way less than that, so we find some value on backing Georgia there. Heifel's been serviceable, 4.84 Sierra, 6.35 ERA over his last 5 outings. But Leighton Finley's been a lot better, 2.91 ERA, 2.97 Sierra. And then he's been better through the regular season as well in both ERA, xFIP, and Sierra. So I like the Bulldogs to come out of this one. I do think they'll let one go tomorrow and then force a game 3, which they'll ultimately win.
A&M in Oregon?
I've liked this Oregon Ducks team, but I just think that they're running into a sawmill and Ryan Prager tonight. That's going to shift the whole series. If Prager gets the presumed win in game 1, then they're going to throw Shane Sadeo, and they could pretty much just stack the bullpen at that point and play for this game. So the series doesn't go to 3 games. So I think that would be detrimental for A&M. RJ Gordon has been good, but not great. And really, you could say that for all of Oregon's pitchers. They've all had good outings, but not consistently good throughout the regular season. Even though they are 11-4 in their last 15, you look at the numbers; they're so in favor of Ryan Prager in game 1. And like I said, I think Texas A&M, if they get a small lead with Sadeo out there, they'll start throwing everybody else, Lampkin, Tanner Jones, all these guys that they've got in this stacked bullpen. I don't think Oregon's offense is going to be able to hang with A&M.
Last question to both of you. And Quentin and Matt, one team you expect to be playing next week in Omaha, and give us an upset special. Q?
I think Tennessee would be the cop-out answer. So I would say Virginia. I think Virginia is going to make it to Omaha for the 3rd straight season. Upset special. I don't know if it's really an upset, but when I look at the series, I think NC State could have the best chance to maybe upset. I would say NC State or Florida are evenly matched with their opponent and could easily be justified and not surprise anybody if they made it next weekend.
Matt?
For me, I would say I like Oregon State. That's probably the only upset. I think a lot of times in the Super Regionals, once you get back to that best of 3, like the regular season is, the cream rises to the top. And I think you're going to see a lot more chalk come through. Oregon State's the only one that I think the series price was plus money. But I think you're going to see chalk all over the board with Oregon State in there.
Scroll has been going the whole time, gentlemen, but I always like to finish with you guys. So, Quentin, where can they find all your work?
You can find me on Twitter or X at QMilly. That's 3 L's, 2 Y's. Obviously, check out our Twitter, NCAA Insiders, and on our website, collegebaseballinsiders.com, for all your Super Regional as well as College World Series needs for next weekend.
Matt?
collegebaseballinsiders.com, the best free resource out there. And I'm at Grissom on X on Twitter, X. I don't know if I'll ever be able to not call it Twitter.
No.
It's always going to be Twitter for me. So it's always a great show. And I want to highlight what you said, okay? Because there are too many trolls, and I'll use the word shitbags on Twitter and X, okay? These guys are providing a service for free. There is no website in the country that has the information and the resources that these gentlemen have. Okay. So if you're looking for a paid service or you want to bitch, cry, scream, and holler because of an L, go tell Oprah or go find another service. All right, guys. This is the second year that these guys have provided this. And next year, if they put a paywall to it, I would say bravo at this point, because there's so much information there and these guys are doing it for free. So if you want to bitch and whine, go find someone else to bitch and whine to. Okay. There, I vented for you guys. How's that?
Thank you.
We appreciate
it. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one and only Matt Grissom at Grissom on X, and Q Millie. That's 3 L's, 2 Y's. We wish everyone a blessed afternoon. Enjoy the weekend. Have some fun. Go watch the kids, will you? And then we'll be back next week for a trip to Omaha. Maybe we'll have Peyton Manning on the show as well. So see you soon, guys.